He is the Senior Advisor, Digital Security Services in Crow Advisory Services, India LLP. He is an Honorary Program Director at ICAI, Bangalore Chapter. CA Nrasimhan E is a futurist, cybersecurity auditor, and a keynote speaker. His areas of practice include cybersecurity audits, SOC 2 and ITGC attestations, auditing emerging technologies such as AI, big data, and IoT. He is a faculty for DISA, CISA, and courses on blockchain technology. He has authored more than 7 books for ICAI, CA, etc. on technology. He is a regular speaker on technology at various national and international conferences of ICAI, ISACA, CII, FICII, etc. He has often addressed the ISACA international conferences at Asia CAX, Europe CAX, Africa CAX, North America, and was often amongst the top rated and youngest speaker. He has been identified as one of the top 10 influential consulting leaders 2020 at annual recognition for torchbearers in the consulting sphere by CEO Insights magazine. With this brief introduction, I present before you CA Nrasimhan E. Over to you, sir.
A very warm evening to all the members. Really nice to meet all of you. And one very pertinent topic in today's era, which is on how do you protect yourself from the so-called digital aliens and the digital vulnerabilities, and especially from a startup, because we are consulting and advising a lot of these companies, and some of the times those practices what we follow, we could follow for ourselves, we could also follow it for our clients or our customers, right? So considering both those elements, I thought I've kept it as both at a neutral perspective, right? The way we will go through is I'll highlight some of the key issues and risks which we are facing, and of course try to come up with some sort of a solutioning approach as to what we could probably look at. Not going too much into my information and details, I think it was already given. A disclaimer is that, I'll be speaking of many apps during the course of this conversation, just as an example. But it's only purely from an academic or, from a practical perspective that a few of the features which I've experienced, I thought I should be sharing. So I'll take you through 4 broad things. First is some of the basics in terms of cybersecurity and what is essential for us. And what many of them keep on asking is what is the common infrastructure elements which has to be in our offices. So that's something which we'll spend some time. Importance of cybersecurity and considering the landscape which is changing, the newly introduced Digital Personal Data Protection Act, that's another new monster inside which has come up, right? And what are a few safe practices? What are those things which we can probably get started right from, right after the session? What are the few things which we can do? Quickly, if I head into basics, and this was an email which I received 3 days back. And this is obviously my Gmail. It says, check your last bill transaction, bill number 5846. You get an email like this. And it has some Leonardo, I don't know if Leonardo da Vinci or whoever it is, right? Somebody is, or Leonardo, whoever the actor or whoever it is. But yeah, it just says update from statement team, and I've got it. And if I click on this attachment, or rather if I just see the content of the attachment, it says that there's a confirmation mail for subscription of McAfee, product description and some basic details. If you need to cancel, you'll have to give this. And it also says your purchase details are secure. Right? Unfortunately, this mail will come not to your email ID, or even if it comes to your email ID, at least you will think who is this and you may probably brush it out. It comes to your common office email ID which is there. And 90% of the time this email ID is handled by our office colleagues, right, who may or may not be aware of what is this. They might think probably it's a new client or somebody and then go click on this and download it. That is where the first mistake happens, right? These are malicious emails which have some random content and random subject. Don't even bother to how much ever exciting it is, because especially when an email is addressed not to you, your email is more exciting to read. You get an email, dear Natasha, please find attached the confidential report. You are more excited to know who is Natasha and who is, what document she has sent. Right? Actually, it is some sort of a phishing or some sort of a mail, which is, we call it as in cybersecurity, we call the concept called steganography. Right? It is basically concealing something in that file. You open or download that file, it will do its work. That's all. What can it do? It can take all your information and give it to somebody else. It can share your screen and give it to somebody else. Every keystroke you are hitting, it can probably pass on the message. There are 100 different variations, right? Or worse to come, it can control your system also to do what is called as a denial of a service attack. So the first principle when it comes to a cyber security in this world today is, right, what Buddha said. Remember what Buddha said? Attachment is the root cause of suffering. And this is that attachment. Right? Lord Buddha said, attachment is the root cause of suffering, and that is basically what I am actually seeing happening in offices today. Because in that one attachment, your entire thing will go for a toss. Unfortunately, 2 years, not 2 years, this I think was prior to pandemic, there was one CA who was based out of Mumbai who received some email like this. This is the revised income tax refund procedure. That staff thought that to be a genuine procedure, took that email and sent it to all the clients. And all the clients started filling some information, and afterwards it took them to a online username password portal where it was a bank portal. It replicated that of a bank portal. And that point in time to log into a bank account, two-factor authentication or a OTP was not mandatory. Today if you log into a bank account for the first time, or if you are logging in a system which is not registered, it will ask you for a OTP. This was not there at that point in time. This was about a good 5 to 7 years back. And all of them gave the details, and almost close to about 5 lakh to 8 lakh rupees the clients lost. Remember, when a mail comes from a CA, there is no question of asking or even checking. They will just go ahead and do as per the compliance whatever is required. That is the trust they place. Right? So we need to ensure our systems in our office also is depicting that amount of trust. Right? So that's basically what the background and the perspective which I wanted to make a mention to get started with this. And not to forget that one very hard reality today is the remote working. I'm sure all of us, our offices, we have agreed to the system of remote working, right? Many of us are joining our offices only if they are giving a work from home, and we have to respect it, because with the Bangalore, the traffic issues, they having some challenges, I think it's more or less accepted culture. And in startups, this is all the more, right? Almost close to 70% of the workers said that they prefer a work from home experience. Of course, they've had some challenges. The problem is, earlier, everybody used to come in one premise, one office, one cabin, or one physical structure. So I could put in rules like a firewall and certain things which will ensure only authorized traffic is coming in or authorized traffic is going out. Today, that one fortress is at multiple places. It's at your home, it's at my, probably my home, it could be at a restaurant while you're having food. And some of them I've heard work from home, they'll become work from anywhere. You need not be at home. No, how does it matter if you're at home or if you're anywhere else? I'm working. I've seen cases of work from hospital also. Right? And whatever, due to various XYZ reasons. So which means hybrid working is a culture which is going to survive. But remember, when a hybrid culture, when you're connecting your laptop to a mobile data versus you connecting to a Wi-Fi, you're connecting your laptop to some sort of a Wi-Fi connection. Is that Wi-Fi connection secure? Otherwise, whatever you're sending out from your laptop is secure. The Wi-Fi connection, somebody can bypass it and look into it. Classical example, hotels. That is why we say in hotels, never use the Wi-Fi connection for you to perform sensitive transactions. In simple language, it is like I am sending some message, but the Wi-Fi, somebody else over there can receive it and interpret it. Are you getting that? Right? So that is the simple, very basics which we will have to look into. Gartner survey says 47% will give the choice of working remotely, and I think that's only increasing. CISO's benchmark report says that organizations are literally struggling to manage remote working, and there is a 60% increase in phishing emails. In India, phishing emails will come in during the time of Diwali. That's one single largest campaign of phishing, especially for startups, Diwali gifts, all of those things. They said that, okay, your organization has decided to give you a Diwali bonus. Please click on this link and fill up your details. I'm telling you, that is literally what has happened. The same thing in US happens on Christmas or Thanksgiving, which I think is the last week of November, right? Thanksgiving is a big, ritual or an aspect when it comes to America or Europe for that matter, right? Europe has its own set of aspects. So based upon these locations, the messages are being sent. And that makes it very, very clear, oh, okay, this looks so too good to be true. You believe that, okay, fine, but if you go through it, you get your own suspicion. Right? And this is basically, people have spoken enough of hybrid working culture and other things. The biggest challenge is how you protect your data. And this is one other, on a lighter note, one of the bigger challenges which you face when it comes to work from home.
Sure.
Wow.
In France,
Yes, Abdi. Abdi, can you hear me? Abdi, are you there? I think he's experiencing some network problem. Well, Abdi, welcome back. I can see you're back again. Please continue answering the question. Yes, Abdi?
I said in France,
Abdi, we can't hear you.
Right? While these have been put across in a jovial way, the stronger or the larger reality is that the culture of working from anywhere is actually what we are actually facing today, right? So protecting that data also becomes equally important. Again, I can go on with statistics, but rather I would prefer to go on what are the common infrastructure and the issues which we ought to have in our offices, right? A typical office setup would be something like this, where you have an internet facing. One level below the internet is a firewall required. Now, most of them ask a question, is firewall mandatory? I am too small an organization to have a firewall. See, what happened many years back was, you were working in your office, and if you have to do anything, you had to come to your office only. If you had to work from home, or you want to establish a connectivity from your home to your office, there was no necessity a good years back. Whereas things have changed today. Today I can use any of the solutions. It could be a simple AnyDesk, it could be Zoho Assist, it could be something to do a VPN, static IP, hundreds of methods. From an external world, I can access your office servers. Now this office servers, when from an external world I can access it, in other words, your office system is exposed to the external world by different methods. And that is the reason why it is suggested to have a firewall. A firewall is, in simple language, a security guard who splits between the entry and the exit. Is it mandatory for every office? It is good recommended practice for a very simple reason, that you are from the internet accessing your office premises. You can say, no, I'm using a secure tunnel and all those fancy setup. It is all good, but having this fellow will always ensure that the secure tunnel is only you and nobody else coming into picture, right? And of course, this firewall will get directly connected to the router. A router is where your internet cable sits today. So with this setup, your your internet cable will sit on the firewall, and the firewall will get connected to the router. And then of course you have your server, internal architecture, and various components, right? So I think I spoke about what is a firewall, monitoring of your traffic. Second is a router. The purpose of a router is only to reroute the connection internally, and any internet connection today requires a router. Earlier we had a concept of a modem. Today modems have disappeared. We require a concept of because modems typically came through a telephone cable. Today we don't have a telephone cable based, at least in major cities we see a fiber optic cable based. So which means you will require a router. And last is a switch, the device which connects about 8 to 10 PCs or whatever you have noticed, right? And at the router, you could do multiple configurations of your internet. Again, one other point which we'll be covering a little later in terms of password security and other things. Now that we know these are the typical components, what risk these components could be subject to? And if you ask me, the top 5 risk is basically what I've mentioned here. The first being a ransomware. Somebody kidnaps your data, and this is something which I'm noticing extensively taking place. Somebody kidnaps your data, meaning your data will be in your own premise, but you cannot access it. Imagine that your data, I have put a key, and I have the key. And to give you the key to unlock, I am asking you money, ransom. That's a simple ransomware attack, right? Data is very safe in your premises, but you cannot access your data, right? And that's the first thing which we are coming across. And unfortunately, it's targeted at many CA offices. Yes, sir. Who during the perpetrator? The perpetrator, what he can do is he can do 2 things. One, he will, I showed you an example of an email. Accidentally you download that will have an encryption key. What it will do is it will encrypt the entire system. So 2 things they can do. Situation number 1 is they can probably take your data away also. We do not know. It depends on what that bot can do, right? Situation number 1. Situation number 2, most likely what has happened is your own system in your own premise, it is locked. Whether he can access or not is none of his this thing. He says, if you want to unlock it, you pay me money. And the more you are dependent on that data exclusively, the higher is the risk for you. Right? I've seen some of these hospitals globally, their entire patient records is digitally only, no physical copy. So even if I have to obtain a health card or a scan, everything is there in the system. So somebody has gone for a diagnosis and these sort of things, ransomware attack, and they had no other option but to pay the ransom. Right? And mind you, by paying the ransom, there is no guarantee that you will get it back. There's no professional ethics for him. Hey, I paid you money, give me back this thing, right? That's the most trickiest thing. And history has proven that many of the firms for whom ransom has been paid, they have been one of the firms which have been repeatedly targeted again. Because they know you are vulnerable. Right? So that is where the biggest challenge. So for this ransomware attack, what is the source? 90% of the source is email. Some random emails. And that attacker will have he will get some of your emails through some common form, somewhere you would have filled up a form, some database breach would have happened. He will take it and send one bulk email. Right? And I showed you that email, how it was. It looks very exciting for you to open that. Right? I'm sure September he sends, we will not even bother to open because we have so much of other work. December he sends, we'll open. Right? We may probably be looking into exploring new clients, getting some new work or whatever it is. So that point in time, what will happen when curiosity triggers, right? That is what he tries to make use of. Right? So that is something which you have to be very, very cautious, especially put it down in your teams. And what if I've accidentally downloaded, how to safeguard? Just give a few more minutes, I'll be covering that. Right? So biggest source is your email. And this will have what is called as an encryption, decryption key. Again, you need not worry about all of those things because let us try to focus how to prevent that. Now, extreme case, if the data is completely encrypted, he is obtaining a copy of it. Earlier people said, I've taken a backup, so I'm okay even if this original copy got deleted. So what the hackers started, they started becoming more smarter. They said, okay, fine, you have anyways, you're not going to pay me. I will release this confidential data in public media. That is where things started getting a little ugly, right? So therefore, to prevent a ransomware attack, 2 things. One, you need to encrypt your systems. A very basic level encryption. Second, you need to take a backup. Backup has become so much so important that the Ministry of Corporate Affairs last year had amended the regulations to say every company should do a daily backup mandatory. The regulation earlier said backup as frequently as possible was what the word used. Even if you did once in a year also was okay that time. Whereas today the Ministry of Corporate Affairs has clearly articulated every day there should be a backup. And the place where you take a backup and store that backup server should be in India. So if you thought that I kept my backup in Google Drive, the Google Drive servers are not there in India. It is in somewhere in US. So it is a non-compliance. And an auditor is supposed to evaluate it and test it. right? So remember that in your report, other matters when you are reporting all these things, we'll have to mention that. Second is phishing. Phishing means a mechanism where it is actually the duplicate word for the word phishing, F-I-S-H-I-N-G, fish. The duplicate word, that word itself acts like a proxy, meaning I am sending you something pretending it to be original, whereas in reality it is a fake, right? Like for example, you get a message saying that, within few hours, if you don't update your KYC in this attached link, something is going to go wrong. And that link will be to a XYZ bank, and you click on that link, it look as good as a genuine XYZ bank. But if you see the URL, it will be different. It will say abcxyz.bank or something like that. So things are changing in this space, phishing. Whaling is trying to sell bulk sort of messages. Spear phishing is the latest sort of an attack, where the attacker knows that you are somebody who is very valuable. He targets a mail based on your experience and what sort of mail you will probably be getting. For example, you get a mail, dear sir, as discussed in the meeting here, please find attached proposal for, or please find attached for audit details. Some random thing like that comes. Oh, you think, client has already agreed and gone ahead and given the data also, right? Reality is, who will agree today before the commercials are not finalized? And that's a classical example of a spear phishing, where I know what sort of a line you perform, giving you those sort of things. You will not believe, one of NDTV's journalist was subject to a spear phishing attack. So much so, you can read it online, the journalist, unfortunately, she got a mail from one of a very reputed university of US saying, now you are being appointed as a professor out here. She believed that to be true. She quit the job in NDTV. She was one of the news anchors. Probably you would have seen her as well, right? Yeah. So she quit the news channel and she had to pay some money for processing certain things. She paid the money, almost close to about 30-40 lakhs. And she landed at US. She went to the university and she showed her offer letter. The people asked her, who are you? Until such a time, she did not realize things like this have happened. The latest spear phishing or other type of attack which has happened is blackmailing senior citizens or slightly people who seem to have some sort of a notable bank balance. How they get to know hundreds of methods. They say that here is an email or here is some sensitive information we got to know about you, which we would not like to, which if disclosed to the public, would be very embarrassing for you. And they have gone ahead and transferred funds. There have been cases where somebody has pretended to be a custom official and a police official. They have said that some prohibited goods, including a narcotic substance, has come in your name. I don't want to put in names, but yes, unfortunately, sir. Unfortunate, sir. Yes, sir. Yes, yes. In Kerala, one of the persons received a mail like this and he believed that to be true because otherwise he thought it will be a reputation issue. He went ahead and almost paid about 50 to 80 lakh rupees as fines. And afterwards realized that the person with whom he is speaking itself is fake. With AI coming into picture, deep fakes are something which is huge. Our Honorable Prime Minister's video itself, a deep fake video had come up. I'm not sure how many of them have seen that, where he was playing a part of a dance, right? And he himself says, a person has creatively thought that I can dance, that is good, but it is not me. Right? So we need, and I think one of the Telugu actress, right, a deep fake video became a huge issue, right? And this is only going to increase. I'm telling you, the cyber world, things are only keeping on going to increase. The way in which you can control is only by awareness, assessment, understanding, spreading the knowledge. This is a simple way in which you can identify a mail as a phishing email, right? If you look into the right hand side, it will put in a logo of a very large company or a very trusted or a repute. Generally, it will be a very generic email. For example, dear Visa customer. Visa never sends an email for information. It's the bank who sends an email. Right? But nobody understands that, oh, I got an email from Visa, people think, right? This email is to inform you of a recent update to avoid service interruptions. They give you some language which doesn't look unprofessional, which looks very unprofessional. By the way, these are all changing. Today hackers are going to ChatGPT and asking the script, how do I write a professional email, and they're copying and pasting it. Right? ChatGPT is now unfortunately used on the negative side as well. Right? And they will give you a link. The moment a link is there in that email, please be extremely cautious. The best way to verify a link in any email is take your mouse on top of the link, don't click it. Go to the bottom left corner. You will get to know the actual web address. Simple way. If you are using an Outlook, it's a problem. If you are using an Outlook, it's a problem. In Outlook, what you do, right click, copy link, go to the browser, paste it and don't press enter. You will get to know what is the link. Are you with me? Because the link might say flipkart.com, whereas it is abc.flipkart.com or flipkart.abc.com subdomain, domain, they play around with it. Remember, flipkart.com, before the .com is whatever word appears, that is the domain name. So if it appears as flipkart.abc.com, that means it is abc.com, it is not flipkart.com. Right? So these are things which from a phishing attack they try to play around. And the most vulnerable people are those who are exposed to internet recently. Kids. And today, unfortunately or fortunately, kids beyond after 5th, 6th standard invariably get exposed to internet. Why? They have some online class. They have a small tab where they have given the link. Right? You are forced to attend it. You will not have time to probably see them, and the tab would have been your office tab or your home tab where your email also would have got logged in. Kid will think it is a link, click on that. It will say Google authentication, you do not know, it will go and authenticate it. So if your children are using any of the digital media, please create a separate email ID for them and have it routed only through that. And assuming you have to use a resource for your kid where you are not there, create a different profile or a user profile where none of the accounts are logged in. Many of the antivirus softwares have a feature called kids. You can just enable that and you can set it up absolutely fine. Because you cannot be watching them all the time. And of course, not that they are doing something wrong. Without the knowledge, they go click it. Right? Second most vulnerable thing is the senior citizen community. When I say senior citizen, where they are in a post-retirement, where they feel that they have all the time to play around with their mobile phone, every possible link and forward they are sending. Huge issues. And they believe that, and they go ahead and share the link. And if you have especially phones such as Android, in a WhatsApp I can send you a what do you call it? I can plan what is called as a bomb attack, where I can send an API link which you believe to be a link. You click it, in the background it will download and run something without your knowledge. Right? So forget about corporate. At a personal level itself, so much of issues which we have. Right? Third is a data leakage. Now this is something which has become very, very, very high. You name the most secure of the companies to the smallest of the companies, data is getting leaked. It could be as simple as plugging in a USB drive and copying the data and disappearing, or it could go as complicated as using some sort of algorithm to a robot or a bot to take back your data. The 90% of the time, the simplest methods have been used. What are the simplest method? Open some other personal Google Drive, copy all the organization and the data into it, over. Is there a way to track? Right? Second scenario which has taken place, which I have noticed in some of these companies, there is if any mail is sent, that phone also has that configuration. So you go to your phone, you go to your sent mail, download it and send via WhatsApp, over. Data is getting leaked out. So there are multiple methods in which this is getting leaked out. So please be extremely cautious. I've had situations where in CA offices, the client data was to some extent moved out like this, And the person who finished articleship or whatever, or for some reason gave up on CA, etc., started calling up the clients and saying that I can give you at 1/5 of the cost or 1/20th of whatever, some pricing. Some of the clients also moved because they were very price conscious or whatever, right? So you can think of multiple scenarios which is coming up. And these are just a few examples of data leaks which just happened during pandemic, right? And data leak could also mean you trying to share your information to some other person accidentally. Attachment is of one client, the two email IDs of another client. And this is to be treated as a breach under the new digital personal data protection law. If you send an email to all instead of BCC, that could also be treated as a breach under the data protection law. Right? A simple things such as that, we have to take care of it. I think hacking is the so-called sophisticated one, basically in simple language, unauthorized access. And we think that, hackers requires very, very complicated IT infrastructure, all of those things. The reality is they try to make use of simplest of the mistakes which somebody else would have actually committed. And last is insider threats, right? And this is where it is suggested to have a watch over your systems and your employees, the usage and things like that, right? Randomly just go to sent email of people, or randomly go and examine your office IDs sent email, draft emails, deleted emails. You will get some sort of a interesting thing, right? So you just can probably take action out of it. Likewise, if it could be on your client setup, there could be certain clients where they might say that, sir, we are facing this issue, is there some solution around it, right? There are hundreds of email protection solutions itself available. Try and go ahead and explore that. Because the insider threat is one of the things. Insider threat is what? The employees itself trying to revolt. See, as long as culture and as long as ethics are very clear, things will go ahead smooth. But the moment somewhere there is a disturbance in this equation, unfortunate things could happen. Right? So what is the, or why do I say this entire thing is becoming more and more important, right? Sensitive data loss is something huge. There have been millions and billions of money which is just lost in this. Legal violations. I think I spoke about the personal data protection law which is coming up. For breaches, the penalties are huge. It can go as high as even 200, 250 crores. Reputation is one of the major thing in stake. If you recollect the example which I told you, one of the CA office where an email came and the article sent it, right? Now, assuming the next time the mail comes from the CA office with some sort of a link, how would people start looking at it, right? So reputation is something which is huge, and there's something which cannot come back. And today anybody can be exposed to these sort of risks, right? The worst come scenario could be liabilities. Under the contract law, people can sue. Under the Information Technology Act, people can sue, right? If nothing works out, under the new data protection law, people can sue. Right? So it's a tricky thing. And don't think that the data protection law is still not there. It is already enforced. Only the rules are probably not enforced, but as far as the provisions of the law is concerned, already there is an intimation. Then of course is the financial capability which may have some issues. Yeah, this is typically how a ransomware attack would look like. Just thought, I should give you that sense of it. Right? You will get some message like this. This was, I think, WannaCry ransomware. There are hundreds of variations which has come up, but the whole essence is something trying to give you an error message, and of course they'll try to take all the money in bitcoins because they don't want traceability, right? So now comes the interesting question, what is it that I need to do to avoid all this, right? So the preventive part, what can I do and how can I make it better? That is what we'll spend some time to understand this, right? And before we go into it, unfortunately, this is a simple example why a control is required, right? And let's see what this gentleman does. He wants to go for fishing and he's very excited, but let's see what happens.
What you know about rolling down in the deep when your brain.
A simple clip, right? In case you have not seen it, right? So he's excited to go for fishing. He wants to throw the bait. without realizing where the end point is. And that's exactly what is the major issue. Look into our offices. Typically, I would bucket data into three things. Something which is client related. It could be financial, bank statements, assets, income, whatever, X, Y, Z. Second, client credentials. This is more dangerous. Right? Login credentials, personal information, digital signature. Right? And if you ask me, the second is more important than the first. Of course, in terms of a weightage, probably I'll give 1% more weightage to a client credentials. Right? And last is your own organization data. It could be clientele information, bank account, email accounts, and things like that. Right? So the first step would be probably to identify what are the sensitive data, how can I isolate it. Examples could be a server who has access to. The folders, what do they have access for? What can they perform, what can they not perform, right? Do you have agreements signed off with your employees? Non-disclosure agreements and things like that, right? An annual disclosure is also a good thing. Right? I've seen CA firms, some of the firms, and we also do it in our office, that on the day the employee joins in, first non-disclosure agreement and a privacy protection clause, etc., has to be signed off. On the day employee leaves the organization, right? Another declaration which has clauses of non-solicitation also, including liabilities, whatever is there. So that itself acts like a deterrent, because somebody is signing it. It always runs into the mind that they should not be doing something, right? Next, professional ethics not to forget. Right, you can reinforce. And there have been various courts of law which have said that professional ethics is not only applicable for members, it's also applicable for student community. Right, reinforcing that. Compliance with law. There is a huge requirement which is only coming up. Again, I'm not sure how many of them have taken an indemnity insurance. It is available as low as 5,000 to 10,000 rupees. Our institute has a website where it is available. I think the coverage is about 10 to 20 lakhs. You can probably go and pick it up. Information technology, as far as the rules are concerned, they define what is called as sensitive data. This is valid even now. 2011 law. Even though the data privacy law has come up, it doesn't matter. This is still valid, right? Any person who's collecting this sort of a data is answerable, and CA firms will come within that. CA firms will also come within the ambit of Digital Personal Data Act, which I made a mention of. So few of the techniques which you could probably consider. VPN. If you buy a firewall, which I said, most of these firewall service providers have a VPN connectivity. I think it is worthy to invest into a VPN connectivity if you have a remote working situation or somebody has to access the server. Second, very, very important, Wi-Fi settings, including your office Wi-Fi settings. Some of you would have given office Wi-Fi connection to your office staff as well. Nothing wrong in it, that's your call. But make sure there is a segregation of network. Something called as a guest Wi-Fi is available in most of the Wi-Fi devices. If you go to 192.168.1.1 or 2.1 or 1.2, whatever, right? That will be your default Wi-Fi address. There will be a login name and a password. Please change that username and password. 90% of the time the default username is admin, user. Please go ahead and change that to whatever which you feel. So that means the entry to Wi-Fi is first restricted. Second, that Wi-Fi will have what is called WPA security. Please enable that. Basically, it's a basic level of encryption, right? The moment you have done these two, that itself is a very good practice. The third, within that Wi-Fi profile, you will have what is called guest profile. My humble request is enable a guest profile. Because many a times you would be giving access. Sometimes client comes to your office and you say, sir, I am not able to get internet here. Please give me Wi-Fi activity. What you do, you share the Wi-Fi. No. Please do that change. And some of these apps, right, it will give you a feature where how many of you are connected to your Wi-Fi connection also. And it has a mobile apps also. For example, if you are using a router such as TP-Link, I'm just giving as a TP-Link, right? There are D-Links, other fellows also. They will give you a mobile app where you can actually see how many of them are connected as well. Those are all good things which you can at least just do on a random basis do it. I don't expect you to do it on a daily basis, right? One fine day, just casually check it and have a look into it. because these are the things which we have to take it forward, otherwise mistake made in these things could have a heavy repercussions, right? And next, even in your home we are using a Wi-Fi connection, it is recommended to have a guest connection there as well. You will think, okay, home only we are there, but please have a guest connection there also, because somebody comes and asks, you can always share the guest connection details. Home routers, I think I spoke about this, the default routers, please change the password, admin, user, whatever. Next, how do I make this password? And more often than not, I reuse passwords, right? My suggestion would be, please subscribe to a password vault. It's another matter that password vaults also have been hacked. That's other part of story, right? But it is proven in the past that it is fairly better off than Excel sheets, right? Zoho Vault is a made in India product, right? The data centers also are there in India. Zoho Vault, right? If it is one user, it is free to use. One user is free to use. Go ahead, keep all the password credentials there, right? So that will ensure that there is only one place where you can go ahead and use it, and you need not open the vault and copy paste the password, not required. There will be a small add-on, you go click on that add-on, you say this is the user ID, it will fill up the user ID and password. That solves so much of a trouble, right? So that's another example. Next, rule of thumb, make sure that your password is always a combination of alpha and numeric, right? And of course, a little later we'll speak about password construction guidelines. Very important thumb rule is multi-factor authentication. Wherever possible, please enable. What's the multi-factor authentication? In addition to a password, it will send you an OTP. The advantage is today, most of the attacks, somehow password is getting compromised. So if he or she logs in, you will at least get a alert, right? Suddenly you get an OTP and you are a little suspicious, oh, who's trying to log in, right? So these are definitely good things to mention, right? Two-factor authentication, I spoke about it. Some of these have gone to such an extent, some of these applications have passwordless authentication, right? You have to click on your mobile app, only then you can authenticate. Different methods are there, but do not miss it out. And this is also something which please encourage your clients to do, right? Your Gmail has an OTP, right? Some of you might be having multiple office IDs. In case you don't have a domain ID, I would suggest you can have a domain ID, because you can, that brings in some amount of professionalism as well, and you're also able to bring in that value addition, and when you're speaking with clients, etc., it's easier. Firewalls, I think we spoke about it. Wherever you have internet facing application and external facing, suggested to have it. If you feel firewall is too much of an expensive affair, please note there are firewalls available at host machine level, also at the network level, right? The host machine level, for example, Sophos integrated firewall is one of the companies, right? They provide antivirus as well as firewall support, and it is installed in every system. That itself is a good security practice, right? So you could probably consider that. Antivirus software, needless to say the importance of it. There are solutions which are available as cheap as 300 to 500 rupees per month, or I've seen even cases of 1000 rupees per annum. 1000 rupees per annum, that's a worthy investment, right? So definitely worthy to have this. One of the buzz which happens is, hey, I am using Mac, and Mac does not require, of course for C offices we don't use Mac because of the compatibility. Some of the clients says Mac does not require security. Reality is any person can be attacked, right? So please be a little cautious. Default locking of devices. You just have to go to settings and enable a feature, auto lock, that's it. If not used for more than 5 minutes, because somebody, most of the time, lunchtime, all of a sudden nobody is there in office, right? And bear in mind that 90% of the time, even though 60 to 70% we are there in our office, there is a good 30% we are not there in our office, right? So how do you manage that sort of a setup, right? So I think we spoke about this. Password management, I think I made a mention of. System access, see how, as much as possible, how you can restrict the access to whomever you are sharing it, right? Try using legitimate software only. You went online, you got one link and downloaded. No. Because most of the time when you type online, that link will be from a website called a softonic.us. Right? Softonic will take all the copies of the license and they will put it over there. Right? And when you download it from there, it sends you a lot of advertisements, adware. right? That's another type of a vulnerability. Next, patches or antivirus, periodical updates, those also become important. And make sure that you do not have USB connectivity, right? Recommended to revoke USB connectivity. Sir, I need to use digital signature, use it only in 1 or 2 systems. Anyways, today your DSE works only in 1 or 2 systems. In our office, one you have for GST, one you have for ROC, one you have for EPF, ESI. Because each of them requires different configuration, and one fellow is not compatible with the other, unfortunately, right? Next, social media posts. Yourself, your family members, your articles, or whoever it is, encourage them to share only things which is relevant in social media, right? I am going for a long trip from so and so date to so and so date. Enough. That is enough for hacker. That is good enough for hacker, right? Today, earlier, robbers had to literally come to home and steal the jewelry. Today that is not required. He is also doing work from home. Right? That's basically through a digital setup he can perform certain things, right? Next, email. Spam filters mandatory. If you're using a Gmail sort of a thing, by default they have. If you want, there are also paid emails which are available, and paid emails are suggested to have it, right? It could be even 100, 200 rupees per month. It is, I think, a worthy exercise. Backup. Please make sure you need to back up your data. Now comes the interesting question, sir, how do I back up? Do I connect my hard disk, copy all the data? Simple. First thing when it comes to a backup is, have your entire data saved into one particular drive or one particular system. You can call it as the so-called server computer. Now within that there are multiple methods which you can follow. Method number 1, some people say, sir, I am using Google Drive. I store all my data in Google Drive or OneDrive, therefore it is getting backed up. Please note, Google Drive and OneDrive is not backing up solution. Their policy clear says we are a synchronization solution. So what do I do for that? You need to have a backing up solution. You could take up a backup on the cloud. So you have OneDrive or SharePoint, what you can do is that service provider, he will charge you probably anywhere between 1,000 to 2,000 rupees per month. He will take a backup of your entire whatever X drive, G drive, whatever ABC drive, and he will safeguard it in a different location. So the advantage is, even if the main system is down, this will be protected. I'll give you a classical example of a ransomware which happened on a Google Drive. One of these organizations or CA firms, they were using Google Drive, where one of the employees' system was subject to a ransomware attack. And the moment that ransomware attack impacted that system, right, all the files got encrypted, including the file which was there in the Google Drive. The moment it got encrypted, Google Drive thought the file underwent a change, and all the files, whatever underwent a change, it backed it up. So it went to the Google server. Now the same Google Drive or whatever is there was installed in every other machine. So from the Google server, all the updated files got impacted into 3-4 other machines. So within a few seconds, even though they are working from different geographical locations, because all of them had that common point, it got encrypted. Now how will you prevent these sort of attacks? Right? You can't even go to Google and restore the version. You have to go to every file. You have to go to every file, right click, restore the previous version. Is it practically possible? That is where a backing up solution works. Right? You could use Veeam. Veeam is one of our very popularly used this thing. There is a Bangalore based firm called as Walton. We are using that in our office, helps a lot. And he charges based on compressed data. So if you have 500 GB of data, these 500 GB of data may probably get compressed only to 100 or 150 GB of data. Right? Only for that 150 GB you are paying. And the servers are based out of Bangalore, right? One of the data centers. And they take a backup, and it has a very beautiful feature called version history. Up to 365 days you can creep back the version history. Right? I'm just giving you examples, right? There are hundreds of solution providers worthy to invest into a backing up solution. Last, many of the firms also have brought up a policy, bring your own device, meaning the employee or the article can bring their own laptop and work on that laptop. Please be extremely cautious, because you need to know what control you have on the device. Laptop might be theirs, but the entire data on which they are working is our organization. right? So please strike a fine balance. Only if necessity use it, otherwise avoid it. Right? Some of the few practical tips, and the first thing, it all starts with culture, right? Let's see why culture is important. Right? There's a simple clip to explain, even on a jovial note. Culture is the most important thing, and unfortunately or fortunately, that culture comes only through us. As leaders of our firms, leaders of people who are influencing our clients. It could be as simple as, using a legitimate license, right? And that is why the first thing which I always mention is, in terms of governance, you set up certain things which you want to do. Right? It could be a simple backup policy, right? It could be using some cloud service provider. It could be doing some sort of an employee training. How many of them have a small employee training guide? Forget about a guide, at least an e-book which they have to go through, right? Some reinforcing mechanism. So very basic things which are essential, which we will have to probably do it, right? You could probably do some sort of an internal check. You could create client awareness workshops or sessions, right? And today all of this is available online. You could probably identify one YouTube tutorial, identify 5 YouTube tutorials, you go through it. If you feel it's reasonably good, make a list and make sure that all employees compulsory are going through it before taking the next step, right? Next, as far as organization, as much as possible used only licensed software. Even your Excel and Word suggested to have licensed software, right? It is available sometimes even at 129 rupees per user per month. If you want only Excel, you can probably take it at 550 rupees per user per month. You decide. Not every system requires an Excel, remember that. There are a lot of substitutes for Excel, open source solutions. For example, WPS Office. It has features almost quite similar to that of Excel. 1 or 2 features are better off than Excel, right? You can have that and probably only 1 or 2 Microsoft Excel license. That's absolutely fine, right? Whichever system is uploading or whatever, and your laptop you want to have, you do use it. Other systems use alternative, right? Next, very important and a pro tip. Disable administrative access in every PC in your organization. What do you mean by that? You have to create a separate user profile. So every computer will have 2 user profiles. One is the admin profile, the password only you know. The second would be a user profile, which password is either whoever designated, they are aware of it. Advantage of this is 60 to 90% of the softwares, when they run, they require administrative access. So even if accidentally I have clicked a link and it's downloaded, right? If I double click it, it will not run. Why? No administrative access. Of course, people have slowly started bypassing it. That is why earlier it was 90% plus, now it is, I think, at least 60-70% plus, right? Next, malware, antivirus solution, anti-malware solution, please have it updated. Backup the data at least once a week. Today I would rather suggest at least once a day, because a day's loss of data, I know how much it is. Change your Wi-Fi password. Regularly scan the Wi-Fi to identify who are the users. There's some softwares like who is on my Wi-Fi, some free solutions that you can go and explain. Download only from authorized websites, especially these Java updates. Suddenly you will realize that digital signature is not working. Download from this Java website, right? So please download only from authorized website. Please be cautious there. If you have any critical devices, consider encrypting it. Like a server, you can go ahead and encrypt. For that, you just have to use a BitLocker solution. Write down the encryption keys. That will help you out. Change passwords. Educate users. I think I've spoken about it. In case of BYOD, please ensure there is an awareness and culture in terms of understanding of the risk. Use a dedicated computer for doing internet banking transactions. It is suggested. Try avoiding every PCs, right? Enable auto lock. Reduce portable media usage. You could also enable safe browsing feature in web. Google has that feature, you can go and enable that. Prefer a Google search engine, even though sometimes it gives you advertisement, it is okay, right? Because it's reasonably safe. Avoid open LAN ports in your office. LAN port is there, somebody can just connect a device and start using it. So please be a little cautious there. From an individual perspective, that is for you and I as an individual, do not store PIN card or any of these details in our mobile phone. Some of us would have in our notes or in some feature or some contact details you would have saved that. Please avoid it, right? Avoid sensitive browsing in public Wi-Fi. I think I told you. Railway station, hotel, stadiums or common arenas wherever you get free Wi-Fi, please be cautious. Any telecallers, this is a very interesting thing. They call up and say, we have an offer for you, we have something for you and things like that, and they try to do an unfortunate mischief around it, but that could be dangerous. Please be cautious. Your Aadhaar card, you can lock your Aadhaar card, right? A latest hack which has happened is a biometric data from the sub-register office has been leaked, and sub-register you have to submit the Aadhaar as well. So Aadhaar plus biometric is leaked, over. So Aadhaar is strong, but the place where you give your Aadhaar, is that strong or not? Very important. As much as possible, do not give your Aadhaar card anywhere. Even if you are forced to give that masked Aadhaar. What is masked Aadhaar? First 4 digits will appear, or first 2 digits, then XXXXX, last few digits will appear. You also have an option of downloading an Aadhaar card with virtual ID. Go ahead and try all of these options, right? And make sure you have masked them. That is why earlier, even if you have to know the PAN of a person, or for a PAN, what is the first name, second name, earlier you could identify. Today it's almost next to impossible. Why? Today tax payment you have to do only through login. Outside of login you cannot do. The reason why they brought it is because of misuse. Right? Not that they want it only through a login based method, right? Next, keep your phone protected. Do not open emails from unknown sources I spoke about. Nothing is free in this world. Anything which you get a link as free, please be very, very cautious. Preferably use only one credit card, and that too with a lower limit. Credit card companies will say, sir, credit limit enhanced. No, right? Unless you find a necessity. Some of the companies give you an option in their dashboard. Right? You can go and increase your limit whenever you want. So if you have that, nothing like it. Go to that bank dashboard, keep maybe 5,000 or 10,000, whatever you feel is bare minimum, right? Subject to whatever your expenditure is. And in case you're making some expensive buy, increase it. Again, you can complete the transaction and decrease it. Likewise, disable international transaction by default. Why? Because your credit card CVV number and your date of expiry is enough for you to make an international purchase. Or you don't require an OTP. OTP is required only in India. So if I'm making through a foreign payment or a foreign server, not required, right? Next, keep your phone protected, because that's where most of your assets are. In case you don't have a phone antivirus, you can go and buy it. It is available as probably 300, 400 rupees, right? Worthy to invest. Educate kids, families, youngsters, senior people, very important. Preferably see if you can carry a photocopy of your ID card. If you're going and traveling, right, hotels and other things, carry that, you can give that. Do not write your PIN in your restaurant. The waiter will come and ask, sir, give me your card and the PIN, I will go swipe and come. No, strictly no, right? And again, some of these cards have this auto swipe in facility, right? Auto, what is that? Pinless entry or something like that. Yeah, tap based. So please be a little extra cautious. A few hands-on tips. I think I told you a phishing email, how to identify. These are things which you should bear in mind. Yeah. The other thing is to check a security of a website. You could always go to that top corner, the logo, double check whether it is genuine or not. You click on these details, you will get the certificate, right? Could be even, social media and posts like that. Yeah. Before you click on the link, this is what I was trying to tell you. You take your mouse on top of that blue color link which says read on to find. I'll probably zoom in. It says read on how to you can claim your copy of the special report. That's what it says, right? So I take my mouse and keep it on top of it. Bottom corner, can you see this? It says some siege in OCA, whatever, some random things, right? Now what you can do is you can simply go ahead and copy that website and search on the Google web, right? If it appears in a language which you don't even understand, it's a clear-cut indication that it's a sponsored attack. Please understand, today a lot of sponsored attacks are happening. State-sponsored attacks. Some of the countries are sponsoring a cyber attack. They are encouraging their people to do a cyber attack. Because anyways, the other countries have money, you don't have money, do the cyber attack, you get money. Right? And I mean, I can go on discussing on that, but in the interest of time, these are again draconian issues which we are facing when it comes to this entire landscape. A few password management tips. Substitutions are very good. Dollar for S, A for @ 1 for I or L, right? These are things. Avoid using biological passwords. Very important. Your names, your family members' names, your date of birth, your kid's date of birth, your pet date of birth, right? Please avoid that. And look at that words on the extreme right, right? I shall use strong password. How did it mature to the extreme last? Right? So that's basically what you can look into. And I hope this is not one of your passwords. Right? Because these are few of the most commonly used password. The most commonly used password is the word password itself. Right? And of course followed by 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, ABC, whatever is there. Right? Many of us while creating the GST account, right? So that is also something which you can probably consider avoiding. Again, don't try to use all clients same password. That is also a danger sign. Right? So please make sure you are aware of these predominant essentials. Your income tax account also can enable two-factor authentication. I'm not sure how many of them are aware. There's a two-factor authentication feature in income tax account. Again, I will leave it to you whether you want to encourage your clients. Probably at least HNI clients and other people, you can probably inform them. So every time a login happens, OTP has to come, only then you can go ahead and log in. It will create some procedural aspects. How many times we'll keep on asking OTP for our clients. But in the interest of protection, you may probably want to take a call on that. Right? So if I have to give a quick summary, and I want to keep it a little open-ended, and I want to cover one aspect which I have not mentioned specifically here. First, be proactive, not reactive, right? Let the change begin now, and when I say now, literally now, in terms of very basic things which we can probably focus on. Invest in tools, very, very important. Failure to invest in tools, we will have to pay the repercussions, right? Exercise precaution in the cyber world, develop safeguard, educate kids, youngsters, right? Because these are unfortunately the last mile, right? And make sure you trust, but also verify. Right? Before I conclude, one of the most common questions which I asked, I thought I wanted to cover, but somehow it missed it. Cloud. I am using a cloud services. How do I know it is secure? Right? One of the most common, like for example, Tally on cloud. Somebody will say, sir, this is office management software. Right? We are using a cloud-based office management software. For all of these, ask them a very fundamental question. How do you enforce security? If you ask them, they will say, sir, we are hosted on Amazon, we are hosted on Microsoft. That is not security. Just like saying, I am hosted on Amazon, I am hosted on, Microsoft is like saying, sir, I have all the keys of the world in my hands, and I am walking on the main road very safely. What is that safely? Nobody knows. Because you hosting your application on Microsoft or Amazon is just like you hosting in one server, that's all. Because Amazon or Microsoft is only giving you a provision for you to host it. It is your responsibility to secure it. 80 to 90% of the people don't even know this. They will say, sir, Amazon will take care. No, you have to take care. You meaning whoever is that SaaS service provider. To give a simple example, somehow I got an access of a Netflix account because of a vulnerability in Netflix. It is Netflix who is responsible, not AWS. Because Netflix is hosted on Amazon, in case you're not aware, right? Netflix is hosted on AWS, Amazon Web Services. So Netflix cannot blame Amazon saying, boss, because of you, somebody got access and I had a revenue leakage. No. Netflix responsibility to do that. In other words, whichever software, SaaS software you are using, please double check how they are ensuring safety. Ask them, can you see my data? Simple question. 90% of the time they will say, yes sir, we can see. Right? So those are all indication of a solution which is not mature. You might say, he might say, no sir, it is necessary for us to see your data because for debugging or for issue I need to understand, which is okay. I am not denying that. Right? But that should be provided on a need basis, not by default basis. I hope you are able to get that right. Okay. Next, see whether they are encrypting the information. How are they safeguarding passwords? These are all few very basic things which will help you to identify whether the cloud service provider is reasonably safe or secure. You can ask them, are you adhering with some industry standards like a SOC 2 report or a ISO audit or anything on those lines? Right? Those are again good examples which you can probably adhere to. The next set of things you can probably ask could also be, how are you enforcing, let's say, access restrictions from my data and another client's data, right? Because you don't want interchange of that, right? So these are all few ways in which you can position your questions, statements, so that you are able to take it ahead. Happy to take any questions if any. Otherwise, this is us. We are Ken & Co. We are a CA firm. We are a CPA firm as well. We set up our US operations very recently. We do only IT audit and cyber security, nothing else. Of course, we do a small element of income tax and GST practice, but it's too trivial. Our firm was mentioned in the recent GloPack as one of the success case studies of how a national CA can become an international CA, where Nilesh Vikamsi ji, who is a former president, in one of the conversations he mentioned that, the trends as changing, and our firm was mentioned as one of the examples to see how, we are trying to enter into new frontiers. Our vision is to become probably in another 5 years one of the largest exclusive cyber security CA firm, which is what my vision is, and that's where I'm progressing and envisaging towards. Thank you so much for being a patient audience. Happy to take a few questions if I have any. Yes, sir. Sir, repeat, sir.
Sir, any ways to know how safe our system as on today?
Sir, the simplest thing is check whether your server in your office, that is the first most important asset, right? Please see whether it is secure with an antivirus. That's a very basic essential step. If that itself is not there, I think there only you'll get most of your issues, first. Second, if you feel that you already have an antivirus solution, whatever, please ensure that the admin access is restricted. These two itself will solve a good amount of things. Then you can speak about all these enforcement methods which I spoke of, right? Because I might be safe today, but that does not mean that I am safe in the next minute. I might have the best possible situation put up and an employee who does not know what is the importance of cybersecurity and copy paste the data. We may have today interns who come and join us. We may have people who have just finished their 12th standard and come and join us for articleship training, whatever is there, or maybe 1 year of experience, right? So that itself is a way in which it can move out. So I will rather reposition the question, today's safety is not really important. How do I fortify and keep on building it? But yes, antivirus is a very good example. Admin access disabling is a very good example. Firewall or access is another area which you can look at. These three are very important questions you can start off with.
Thank you, sir.
Yes, sir. So the way in which it is currently worded, right? I can probably give you a quick brief of what this act is, right? And I probably see if I have a small presentation. The requirement is very simple. The digital personal data, first and foremost, applies only if you are dealing with digital data. That means if you have physical data, this is not applicable. First thing. Second, if you have physical data converted to digital form, it is applicable. You have a printout, you took a scan of that printout, it is applicable. You have an Aadhaar card, digital personal data is not applicable. You scan the Aadhaar card, digital personal data is applicable. So is there a size, volume, turnover based on which I will decide? No, it is blindly applicable for all. Unfortunate or fortunate, however you can see that. So the law is already effective, the rules are not effective. So I think the way in which it will happen is the rules, and again, the good thing is like the Companies Act, they have not notified the sections. So what we could probably expect is the government may notify the sections in piecemeal. And I'm expecting this to happen immediately after the union election is completed, because obviously now they don't want to bring any major policy issues, right? We have another 4 or 5 months. So I would sense we have another 6 months time to comply, right? To at least assess what is the problems, right? It could be a simple example, I'll tell you. Today when we converse with the client sends that, sir, here is the details on WhatsApp. What we will do, we will forward it to our office colleague who is doing the work in WhatsApp. What happens? The data is in his or her mobile phone. It's a sensitive personal data. Correct? Now, accidentally it goes beyond the office barriers. Yes, it is going. So, a simple thing like informing clients that no documents shall hereby be accepted on WhatsApp, it can do so much of a difference. See, he has to go click on share on WhatsApp. Instead, he has to go click on share on email. That's all. Extra step is there. WhatsApp, he finds it handy. But extra step is what he has to type our office email ID. Right? Worst to come. Some clients are only like that, says only on WhatsApp they will work. Right? In that case, do one simple thing. Now have your mobile and probably office mobile separately. Send it only to office mobile. Or you receive it and you forward it to an email. These are simple methods you can think of. Next, who has access to this personal information? Can every employee in my office actually look out? I need to be a little cautious. Right? How do I send an email? To whom do I send the email? What if I send everybody in the BCC? Instead of BCC, I send it on 2 and CC. These are all few simple things which we will have to assess through. Right? Again, the list can keep on going, depends on the complexity, but in general, we also need to have a privacy policy. We also need to have an agreement with the client where he agrees and we are saying that this is the purpose of me processing your personal information, and the client is hereby agreeing for it. So those are a few modularities, because unless the client has given a consent, I repeat, unless the client has given a consent, I cannot process. And if the client has to give a consent, I have to issue what is called as a privacy notice. And whoever is processing is called as a fiduciary, because in trust I am processing it. And whosoever data I am receiving, he is called as a data principal. In US and Europe they call it as data subject. Here they call it as a data principal because of a principal-agent relationship, element of trust. So our client will be a data principal. We are the data fiduciary. That means he is giving the data in trust. Fiduciary capacity. Right? And how we discharge, how we responsibly safeguard it, all of those are important. And in case we are using some third-party services with his information, that also has to be intimated to him. You need not go to the extent of intimating every service provider. You can say for example, for certain XYZ purposes, we may refer your case to a third party. Right? Those are things. Yes, sir. Okay. So two options, sir. There is a third party solution which runs on top of Office 365. Sir, there are 2 or 3 third party solutions. What it does is, it runs on a separate Azure instance, right? And you need to link it with this particular link or the file. It will take all the backup and store it, and it will also have a version history. Method number 1. Method number 2, Office 365 itself has a version history concept. So if you enable a version history, the slight defense which you have is, assuming all the file is deleted today, you can always go back to the previous available version and restore it. Every file. If you want it at a bulk level, the challenge is that's why you'll have to put in an add-on solution. Or you try a solution such as Veeam. Or one more option which you can do is the server wherever all of you are using in your office, that you link it to another cloud server, because you would have stored all the data which is also accessible on D drive, E drive, whatever, right? So because you would have installed your SharePoint or OneDrive in E drive or F drive, whatever. That folder itself you take a backup. For example, you use a solution like a Walton. You tell Walton that these are all the files I need you to take a backup. VAULT, Vault, EN, Vault N. VAULT, Vault, EN. That's one of the examples. Again, he says that predominant customers are CS, so I'm reasonably safe and secure. We are also using it, works fine. And at least we are able to restore in case accidentally something has gone wrong. The other interesting question is, interesting way in which I got to know about how data got leaked out recently was, some people were attaching the file in an email, they never send the file. It will be in draft. So I'm attaching the file in an email, I don't send the email, it is in my draft. So in my desktop email, it is in my draft. And I come back to my mobile phone, because it's a cloud service, right? Within few seconds it gets synchronized. In my mobile, there is also a draft. From the draft I download into my mobile phone, over. You're seeing how it is bypassing the entire system without even having any touch point. See, at the end of the day, you need to have some touch point or somewhere it will get triggered, right? And these are trends which you are noticing in corporates and other things. So if you want the best of this thing, there is something called MDM, mobile device monitoring software, which can be installed into your phones, which prevent you from certain things, right? Some of the corporate organizations I've seen, even their WhatsApp is monitored by their company if they want office email onto their phone, right? So again, it's a pro and a con at the end of the day. You can't go on giving on so many things on security that you forget the very purpose of you having the solution. So you'll have to strike a balance, but 60 to 80% following these basic protocols, giving the awareness, asking those questions is good enough. Leakage will invariably be there, you can't avoid it. Question is, can I reduce the possible impact of it? Some of the other solutions which people ask, sir, we want to communicate within our office. Most of the time today we use only WhatsApp, right? You could probably use a software called Zoho Click, which is available for free, right? Or Slack, or if you're using Teams or any of those are also good examples. The advantage is what? You are conversing on similar lines in a particular message or a channel or any of those things. And these are compatible on your phone as well. Those of you using AnyDesk, please ensure you have a paid version. Otherwise, it is a commercial violation. Alternatively, you don't want AnyDesk, this thing, again you have a team viewer. Again, all of those, please have a paid version, right? You have Zoho Assist, right? That's also a very interesting feature where you can control over through a mobile, through your mobile phone also, right? For example, I find Zoho Assist a little more easier when I'm traveling, because I can control and I also get a keyboard option from my phone, right? So if I have to do a net banking transaction, I can see the display screen, the keyboard is still my keyboard. Whereas you try it through, what is the software, AnyDesk or any of those team viewer, if you type anything on the keyboard, there also it will get typed. So people can see, right? So again, every software has its own pros and cons, you can go ahead and explore that. So that is as far as remote collaboration is concerned. There again, if you feel that no sir, I want 3-4 products which are available together, equivalent you can search, right? Word equivalent, Excel equivalent, online version equivalent, right? You have something called as Zoho Remotely, which we use in our office. Again, predominantly our entire office runs on Zoho only, right? For 2 reasons. A, it was reasonably cost effective compared to the Microsoft, and of course now the prices have gone up, but at least when we picked up, it was reasonably cost effective. Second, they have a lot of bundled package. It was sort of self-complementary, to the other. So it became easier for us to go ahead and use it. They give you free email IDs also, up to X number of GB and capacity. So it becomes easier, especially smaller organizations, 10 to 15 members, a lot of freebies are available. And in general, up to 25 users, right? Generally, a lot of these softwares give you what is called as a freemium version. Freemium. That means free up to a certain features and premium up beyond that. So these are all variations which you can probably consider and look at. Any other questions, anything else which you felt that I missed out? Any other office practical challenges which is there, which you want us to, just of course on a no-name basis, we can probably address that. Anything from a solutioning perspective. Not that I have answer to every problem, but at least we could think of. Yeah, so the other challenge which some of them have started facing is all their data, they say, is on the cloud. They've created a so-called cloud with some XYZ service provider, and he is hosting in one data center, right? So your entire office, like your Winman, your Tally, your Saral, all of those which are standalone applications can still be accessed over the cloud, which is a good thing, not denying it. But the flip side is what? See whether the cloud is safe and secure enough. What if that infrastructure which is hosted, that itself got deleted accidentally? So is that fellow taking a backup of it? Those are very important. And never underdetermine the importance of backup. The importance of backup will happen on the day you forgot to backup. Yes, sir. Sir, NAS is a good practice, sir. NAS or SAN. What NAS or SAN does is, you already have a server at your office. You are extending that and pulling a dedicated server. So it is like you have server 1 here, server 2 here. The advantage is it is very easy to set up. So whatever your primary setup is, you have a NAS or a SAN device which takes care. NAS or SAN is basically, imagine one separate computer within your office where every primary whatever data is getting saved, it is secondary goes and gets saved here. Two flip side of a NAS which I have noticed. One, if a ransomware attack happens on any person's office, right? Immediately the network is used and even this gets corrupted. That's what I'm saying. If you have your backup schedule and you have a feature where you can restore, it is a good practice.
Basically, we have a everyday backup.
I agree with you, sir. In fact, any ransomware solution also, even if you keep it outside, if a synchronization feature is enabled, it will get synchronized. The only way in which you can get yourself protected is reverse it or go to the last available version and restore it.
So basically, having NAS with RDP and firewall.
It solves 95%, 98% of the problem. It's a very good control, sir. Very good control.
Thank you, sir.
Only flip side is what we call it in a situation like what has happened in Chennai, right? The server, this has happened in many of the firms, right? The ground floor, first floor, whatever that offices are there, water is seeped in. Unfortunately, the systems in the ground floor, the main server, so it only gives that same what you call it as a geographical risk, because entire data is in only one place. That's the only risk. Otherwise, it's a good control. So I think some of you must have at least got some ideas as to how you should look into controls, how you should look into cyber aspects, right? Enforce it within our offices. Please consider enforcing and educating our clients. I think that will be a good way in which you can move on and take the conversation. Any other questions? Are we good? Thank you. Thank you so much for being a patient audience. Appreciate your time.
Before vote of thanks, an announcement. Bangalore branch is hosting a physical DISA certificate course during January 2024. Kindly visit Bangalore branch website, and it's happening after 4 years in Bangalore. So kindly do register in case if you have not done. And Nrasimhan Elangovan sir would definitely be one of the faculty. And attachment is the root cause of suffering, right? So howsoever tech savvy we are, the fraudsters are miles ahead of us, right? So what are the basic network infrastructure in our office, in an office, we need to take care of, and then we have the concept of work from home or work from anywhere, how we CAs need to keep our systems guarded, and then our clients who, token of gratitude and respect, can I request CA Nanu or Malya, sir, a senior member of profession, to come out to us and then do the honors. And another announcement, we have 2 days CP seminar held in Devaraj Aras Bhavan on 15th and 16th of this month. In case if any of you need to attend, or if your friends are supposed to attend, kindly make note of it. You can register online. Members, we are at the final technical session for the day on the topic unlocking the worth